and welcome again to another episode of Mind Renovation Nation, your go-to source for institutional property management is Red Maples. That is our property management company. You know, on each show, I share with you real-life experience from innovators, influencers, and we explore the challenges facing small multifamily real estate. I'm your host, Nathan Bush. And we designed this show today to specifically answer questions that you and our audience have had about becoming financially free through real estate investing. If you want more of these types of resources regularly, you can subscribe to my show or head on over to the YouTube channel and subscribe there. You can also join my website email list. Go to nathanbushmba.com/subscribe and make sure that you check out the other resources in the show descriptions. If you have questions today and you are watching live, feel free to submit those questions. We'll see if we can get to them, but we got a jam-packed show today because have you ever wondered how some people achieve financial freedom before they turn 30? That's the question today. While going to school at Rolla, then graduating with a mechanical engineer degree, James Gleeson quickly found out that engineering wasn't for him. He bought his first house when he was 21 years old and then roughly 6 years later became completely financially free through real estate investing. James's largest deal to date is a 28 unit in Soulard that he manages himself. Now, I want to encourage you guys, you're going to want to pay attention today. There's so many different people in real estate that are out there that tell you that they have done certain things. This gentleman, we're actually touring his apartment community coming up this Thursday with a group that I participate in and sponsor here locally called Tours and Pours. So James's largest deal is this 28 unit that we're going to tour in Soulard that he self-manages with 4 other partners. I'd like to welcome to the show James Gleeson. What's up, James?
What's up, Nathan? Thanks for having me.
Oh, man, I'm so excited to have you a part of the show. And, you know, James, there's so many people I know that we're mutual friends with. It's like, hey, you got to have this guy James on your show. You got to get him involved in Tours and Pours. This guy really knows what he's doing. Now, is it okay if I share with everybody your age?
Please.
28 years old, guys. Like, pay attention to the conversation today because this guy is so far ahead of so many of us already in the game of real estate investing. James, tell everybody a little bit about your background, who you are, and how you got into real estate.
Yeah, of course. So bought my first house when I was 21, but I want to rewind a little bit because it's going to give a good backstory of how I got into real estate and why I'm here today. Grew up with parents who always told me to be extremely goal-oriented. So from a very young age, I always knew that if I wanted something, it wasn't just going to be handed to me. You know, I needed to really work hard for the things that I wanted. And when I was younger, that was basketball. I had aspirations to make it to the NBA every single day. Well, that's not true. Most days before high school, I would be practicing in the gym. Then I would have basketball practice. And then after school, I would practice some more. And then at nighttime, I was playing 2K11 or whatever was out at that time, a video game for basketball. So my life was literally nothing but basketball. And I made it to Division II college basketball with a goal to pursue professional basketball. And it was a very humbling experience for me. I went from the star of my team in high school to not even close to the star of my team in college. And everyone was bigger than me, stronger than me, more skilled than I was. So yeah, very humbling experience. And I ended up giving up basketball. And after that, I had been pursuing basketball my whole life. And I was in Rolla as an engineer, learning to be an engineer. And quite frankly, I didn't enjoy engineering school. So I felt this void because I had been working all my life for this goal. And now I'm working at a degree that I don't even really enjoy. So I always had a natural inclination for real estate for whatever reason. My mom and I were watching The Apprentice when I was growing up. And love him or hate him politically, it's not really the point. That's just my story. I would always ask my mom, you know, what does that guy on the TV do? And she would say real estate investing. So for me, there was always this natural inclination. I always wanted to get into real estate. So when when I gave up basketball after my first year of college, I just completely obsessed with real estate investing. Listened to all the podcasts, read all the books, hired a mentor, went to networking events, did all the things that you're supposed to do if you want to take something seriously. So I learned how to buy real estate without any of my own money through creative finance, through partnerships, through some hybrid methods, through hard money. And we can get into all of that if you'd like. But I ended up buying my first house when I was 21 for $25,000, if you could believe that. Today, that property's worth about 130, 140. So talk about appreciation. And fast forward to today, at that point, I was hooked. I bought my first one. That led to the next one. That led to the next one. Got some extremely humbling experiences in real estate as well. I have a mentorship business now, and I tell my mentees that if you just do the opposite of what I did for 6 years, you'll be successful. And I'm talking, contractors stealing from me, going over budget, buying in wrong locations, buying the wrong deals, and everything in between. But persevered through those. Met my fiance 4 years ago. She's been extremely supportive. And anyways, fast forward to today, I have 125 units, roughly $17 million worth of real estate, and I've become completely financially free.
Wow, James. I mean, your story is inspiring for so many people. And I think the reason it's inspiring is your determination to persevere when things got rough. I want to dive into the real estate, but the mindset to me is very important if we're going to get to financial freedom. I heard you say that you did a number of things. You read books, you got a mentor, you went to the meetup groups. So you did a number of these things. What was your mindset after basketball, before getting into real estate, about your ability to get to where you are today, 100 plus units, the whole 9 yards? What was your mindset before, when you were finishing up basketball, getting into real estate? What were you thinking?
Yeah, it was similar to basketball. It was excitement. I was very excited by the business. Like I said, I've always had a very natural inclination for real estate. And when I bought my first house, I thought I was some genius. I was like, I'm going to be the next Grant Cardone. That was easy. And so I would say excitement, and then probably got a little bit ahead of myself and bought rather quickly. But was very quickly humbled with the reality of the difficulty of achieving something great. I mean, it was very, very hard. That property that we're going to be touring, my 28 unit, the building that's connected to it, I was sleeping on the couch in that property 6.5 years ago, illegally subleasing the property. So I had a landlord, I was renting it, and I rented out my rooms and I Airbnb'd them so that I could save $550 a month in rent. And back then, to me, that was a bunch of money. So it was very much an attitude of excitement and a whatever it takes mentality.
That whatever it takes mentality is, I hear that from real estate investor after real estate investor and after real estate investor. I think so many people in real estate, they get hit by an object, right? There's a barrier, something that's keeping them from taking the next step, whether it's financing, whether it's finding partners or people to help you, whether it's finding the right management connection, real estate agent, finding the right deal. Some people get analysis paralysis, but these people that allow these barriers to stop them, they really are, in my opinion, not whatever it takes people. What is a whatever it takes person or mentality? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's especially easy to not have a whatever it takes mentality in real estate, because the concept of it is so simple, right? We've all played Monopoly before. It's not a very difficult business to conceptualize. It's simple, but it's not easy, right? Just like going to the NBA. All you have to do is practice basketball every day and you'll make it to the NBA. But in practice, it's very difficult. So a whatever it takes mentality is someone who understands that it's not going to be easy. There's going to be roadblocks. You hear all the time, if it was easy, everyone would do it. So to me, anything worth pursuing I don't think it would be nearly as fulfilling for me if I would have just inherited these properties, or if I would have just, won the lotto or something like that. So you truly can find joy in the grit. And I think, in my experience, the people who I know who are the most successful truly love what they do. If you ask me what my motivation is today, my motivation at one point was to quit my job. That's why I did real estate. I loved it, but I also wanted to quit my job. I absolutely hated what I did. So that was, big motivation for me. But now my motivation is simply, I do this business for sport. I do this as a replacement for basketball. I enjoy doing this. This is what I love to do. If I wasn't doing this, I don't really know what I would be doing. Probably playing video games and traveling, So I would say whatever it takes mentality is someone who understands that there's going to be roadblocks. And I would say if you don't enjoy what you're doing, probably not worth doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Take me back to that first deal, James, now. So you go from watching The Apprentice to making the decision to make your first purchase. How was it purchased? How did you come up with the funds to purchase it? And what did the deal structure look like on that first deal?
Yeah, so I found the deal through Craigslist. That was still a thing back in the day. Maybe people are still finding deals on Craigslist today. I don't know. But I read a Bigger Pockets podcast, I read a Bigger Pockets blog about finding deals. And one of the ways was Craigslist. So I found it on Craigslist, had no idea what I was doing. I saw that it was for sale for $25,000. And that was my criteria for knowing if it was a good deal or not it's cheap. So it must be a good deal. And like I said, I was a 21-year-old student in college. So I didn't have money, credit. I didn't have a rich uncle. I didn't have anything. So finding the financing for that deal was the most difficult part. I immediately called the agent when I saw the listing on Craigslist, asked more about the deal. Didn't really know what questions to ask, but I had found a property management group off of Google. I simply Googled property managers near me. And this was a smaller property management company, and they took a liking for me. They saw that I was a young buck, a 21-year-old. And they just walked through the property with me, pointed out the things that I should watch out for. So I'm very, very grateful for this husband and wife who own this property management group to walk this deal with me and sort of take me under their wings and tell me the things that I should look out for. And they are the people who referred me to the hard money lender that I eventually ended up using. So I had called lots of hard money lenders just off of Google. All of them denied me because I didn't have credit and I didn't have money. And you need credit and you need some money to get into real estate. But because this hard money lender was referred from this property management group, he eventually gave me a shot. And when I say that, I want people to understand it was a call. He was committed. Then he called me again and said, never mind. And it was a very persistent, please give me this chance. I'm not going to let you down. So it wasn't easy to finally convince him to lend me the money for this deal. But he lended me 100% loan to cost. And that means he gave me all the money for the purchase and the rehab. Bought it for 25, put 15 into it. So I was all in for roughly 40, and it appraised for something like 65 at the time. So really, really low numbers. And like I've said earlier on the podcast, that deal today is worth about $130,000. So it's pretty much doubled in value in the 6.5 years that I've been doing this. So to answer your question, found it on Craigslist, structured it with a standard BRRRR deal, which means you buy it at a discount, you renovate it, and then you refinance based on the new appraised value. And the rest is history. I still own that deal today.
That's incredible. And, these types of stories and successes that people have in your mentoring program, you often post about that online on your Instagram profile. How do people find you on your Instagram profile? Because I know that's a big deal for you. There's a lot of movement and traction there.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. Everyone can follow me at James Gleeson 25, Gleeson with 2 E's. Side comment, I very much respect anyone who has over 10,000 followers on Instagram. Similar to the real estate hustle, the social media hustle is something serious. And I've been taking that somewhat seriously for the past few months, and it's a grind. So James Gleeson 25.
Awesome, James. Now, James, we were talking about your first deal, and you used hard money and then Bird, and that was the strategy that you used to go to your next transaction. So whenever you went to your next transaction, if you can walk us through that story, what was the next deal? Did you go out on your next deal then, or maybe next couple of deals, and try to put money down and finance it normally, or did you try the hard money strategy again? How did you go from one then to two or three, or whatever the next step was?
Yeah, rinse and repeat. So found the second one off of Facebook Marketplace. So first one off Craigslist, second one off Facebook Marketplace, same lender, same property management group, same contractor, same everything. So after I had proved myself to this hard money lender the first time, which is a very important component of this, your relationships in this business is absolutely everything. Because you can compound those relationships, the same way that money compounds, so do your relationships. And yeah, he put trust in me for the second one. He put trust in me for the third one. And then he stopped lending to me, not because anything happened between him and I, but because his number one hard money lending client started going to a bunch of auctions and he was capped at his money. So I bought my first 3 deals with this gentleman.
That's awesome. So you actually were able to utilize the benefit of hard money to get into transactions and to move through it. If somebody was starting today, what would be your recommendation as far as how hard money works in the current environment and current market?
Yeah, still absolutely works. I mean, as I'm talking to you today, I have 10 hard money loans that I'm actively a borrower on for new deals. I think where people get a little bit paranoid is the high interest. I mean, it is expensive to borrow with hard money. But if utilized correctly, this is not a long-term loan. This is supposed to be very short-term. I think the most important thing that newer investors can take more seriously is probably construction management. I see a lot of new investors who see a TikTok about buying real estate without any money. They just dive right in, they buy a deal, and they think that it's going to be, rainbows and unicorns from there. So if you get the construction management piece down, your ability to get in and out of deals consistently is going to skyrocket. Also, my ability to find deals consistently is not because of all these cool tactics that I have. I have the tactics, but so does everyone else. I think what sets me apart is I can look at a deal that 5 or 10 other people can look at, and I can get it done for less, and I can get it done faster. So I've really laser focused on the construction management piece. And as a result of that, I'm able to execute very, very well with the hard money. So I would say to a newer investor, hard money is like fire, right? You can cook with it or it could burn down your whole house. So be very careful with it. It's a tool. But it's a very powerful tool if used correctly. So do not ignore the construction management piece. I know that you want to get into this business to own assets and to get into real estate and not necessarily for construction. But I promise you, if you can laser focus on the construction component, your success will skyrocket.
I've got so many questions about construction, but I want to lean into the financial freedom aspect of the fact that you got there. And your mindset about getting to financial freedom is no joke. Like the same way that you were prepping to become an NBA superstar, were prepping to become financially free and move into real estate. You went through the same style of process of practicing and that kind of stuff. What were things that you were looking at in your personal finances now that you've got 3 deals under wraps and you've now got this laser focus on getting out of your job and working real estate full time? What were the things you were looking at in your personal finances to prep yourself for the day that you were going to leave that job?
Cash flow. Cash flow is the only thing when you're starting out. You'll go into seasons as an investor. So right now for me, cash flow isn't really important. I have the passive income to basically do whatever I want within reason. If I want to make it to the next level, I'll definitely need more cash flow. But I can live a free life. I've retired myself. I've retired my fiance because of cash flow. So when you're starting out, cash flow is the only thing, the most important thing, because it allows you to replace your income. That was my goal. I was an engineer, making like 70 grand a year, something like that. And I had some bonuses. So I needed 70 grand a year in passive income. That was the goal. Now, if you fast forward 6 years later, I hated my job so much that even when I got to 70 grand, I needed to make sure that I got much higher than that, because I wanted to make sure no matter what, when I quit this job, I am not going back. So I actually took it much further than just replacing my income. But cash flow is the most important thing when you're starting out. Nothing else matters. You'll get into seasons as an investor, however. So once you obtain the financial freedom, the most important thing is appreciation. It's equity. You now have all the cash flow that you need. Now you want to create wealth. You want to build your net worth. And then once you get to the next stage, the only thing that matters, the only reason why you buy real estate is for tax benefits. You make so much money that you need to buy a piece of real estate so that you could do a cost segregation or bonus depreciation and offset your active income. So different things will become important to you as you progress in your real estate career. But for me in the beginning, cash flow is the most important thing.
Yeah. So when you're looking at cash flow, there's different ways to see income for people that are starting out. There's your income, there's your expenses, and then there's what's left over. When we're talking about cash flow, we're talking about what's left over after all of the expenses. So James, when he's talking about how he got himself to a point where his cash flow exceeded his full-time W-2 income, it was after all of the expenses. So I'm sure that there were things along the way that were like, okay, this is difficult for me to get to the point where what sits in the bank and I'm taking home and I'm paying taxes on, I'm sure it's difficult to get to that point. How did you budget those expenses from a personal standpoint? Did you have a property manager pay all of your expenses and then what was left over was paid to you? How did you set that structure up at first so that you knew, okay, this is the right time for me to make this transition?
Yeah. Well, I didn't do it the right way. So what I did is not necessarily what I would advise. But it's interesting. I wonder if it's like this with every business, but I know with real estate investing, it was certainly this way for me. It's not like every year that I progressed, I became wealthier and had more cash flow year by year. No, it was years 0 to 3, a little bit of progress. And then years 3 to 6, no progress. And then 6 to 6.5, everything hit all at once. All of my properties finally were stabilized. So there wasn't much of budgeting going on because I got myself into some trouble pretty early on. I bought way too many properties. I had contractors stealing from me. I mean, anxiety was through the roof, as you can imagine. So my solution for that was I had my engineering job. I had 2 serving jobs that I worked on nights and weekends. And then ever so occasionally I would DoorDash. But also, when I had free time, I would go to the property and paint myself, lay flooring myself, and do things myself to save some money. So there hardly was any money left over from the property management company to give me. So there wasn't a whole lot of budgeting going on. It was just obsession over how do I survive so that I don't lose everything that I just worked so hard for. So for me, that was sleeping on a couch, working multiple jobs, and surviving until I got to a point where I was making a little bit of cash flow. And now I could quit one serving job, spend a little more time on real estate, quit another serving job. And now we're here today.
Awesome. So what would you say then, because I've heard a couple of different times you share with us that there were some mistakes that you made along the way, which is why you had to pick up these other jobs and that kind of stuff. What would you say are the top 3 because we don't have time to get into every single one of them. We all make plenty of mistakes throughout our lifetime that we can get better from. But what are the three biggest ones, and what did you learn from those?
Trusting contractors too much via paying them a large down payment up front. And when I talk about construction management, this is not to say that contractors are bad people. In fact, probably 90% of them are honest, hardworking people who are just trying to make a living. But one thing you have to remember about contractors is if they're ethical, well, if they're not ethical, they'll just take your down payment and leave, and you'll never hear from them again. And unfortunately, that's happened to me more than once. If they're ethical, you have to remember these are construction managers. They're not financial managers. So they have one bank account probably for their business. It's not like they have a separate bank account for every property that they get into. That would be unrealistic. So let's say that you pay a contractor a $20,000 down payment, right? And he's working on another job. So he has the $20,000 in his account. He's working on the other job. That job, some things go wrong. He needs some extra money. So he takes the money from his bank account to pay for it. Then by the time he gets to your job, he has less than $20,000 and he starts working on it and he runs out of money. And he says, Nathan, I'm going to have to change order you. I underbid, this project. It's going to cost more money than I originally thought. And that creates a spiral of issues. Now you're upside down from the very beginning. So I would say managing contractors correctly, not paying them a down payment up front, being very careful about paying them their last payment at the end, because if you pay that too quickly and then you walk it and you notice that there's things that need to be done, they're going to need more money to do those things because they've already moved on to another job. So I'd say that. I would also say when running your rehab estimates, it is very important to be conservative, right? And more than likely, things are going to go wrong. So I like to, what's the saying? Prepare for the worst, but hope for the best, right? So that's what you want to do when running your rehab estimates, because more than likely something will go wrong. So if nothing ends up going wrong and you get to keep that construction money, then that's just icing on the cake. But when something does go wrong, you could get into trouble if you didn't underwrite conservatively. So I would say that. And then the third thing I would say is not to buy property just because it's cheap. I think that that's a very tempting thing for a lot of newer investors. I know that that was my criteria when I got started. But I can tell you I make more money in my B-class assets than I do my C-class assets. For those of you who don't know, B-class is just, the year it was built and the location and the demographic, just a higher income class demographic that we're dealing with. But that's something else that you also want to graduate into. So you don't necessarily want to buy A-class assets from the very beginning, right? If you're in St. Louis and you're listening to this, you don't want to buy in Ladue and Clayton from the very beginning, right? You probably want to start, my advice at least, and that everyone has a different opinion. My advice is you start with the C-class markets. You start with the Dutchtown, the Bevo, the Gravois Park, the Mount Pleasant, those parts of town that perhaps you wouldn't live in, maybe you would, but there are blue-collar workers in those locations. And the reason I say that is because if you start with those, that's where there's the most opportunity. That's where there's the most distressed properties. That's where people don't take care of their assets. So you can buy those, you can raise your net worth, you can raise your equity position. And look, 5 years from now, if you decide that you don't want to own those, you can sell them, you can refinance, you can do whatever you need to do. But if instead you only focused on Clayton and Ladue, then you're going to have a hard time finding property in the beginning. Or even if you focus on a B-class market like Soulard or Benton Park or places like this, there's just less opportunity in those markets. So I think it's very smart to graduate into the season of location that you are investing in.
100%. So the three biggest mistakes: don't pay your contractors up front. Second biggest mistake is make sure you underwrite the deal properly. And the third biggest mistake was make sure you're buying a quality asset that is not going to end up being major issues for you. I mean, if you're going to do renovation, value add is one thing. Not understanding the ramifications of the area and that kind of stuff is a completely different thing. And so don't make those major mistakes, guys. All right, I want to take a second and thank our sponsor. Our second sponsor for the day is BBC Global Services. BBC Global Services helps people like you focus on your superpower, simple and on your terms with no term limits. You can get a free consultation by going to bbcglobalservices.com. That's bbcglobalservices.com. We love BBC Global Services at Red Maples. They're our virtual assistant organization. So if you need somebody to help with admin or paperwork or back office stuff, they're not the ones to negotiate with contractors. They're not the ones that are going to help you project manage or project plan, but they can schedule out contractors for your rentals. And for us, they do a number of things like prep leases and stuff like that. So if you need a virtual assistant, we highly recommend this company. They'll find somebody specific and tailored to your needs. Go to bbcglobalservices.com. Now we're back and on with James Gleeson, and we are talking about how he went from engineer to financially free and did that before he turned age 30. That's an incredible feat that he's done. Has over 100 properties. We've learned about a number of mistakes he made. We learned about his plan on how he set his goals up and how he bought his first couple of properties. Now, James, I want to take a second and pivot into your growth strategy. So you first started off to get financially free. You set up a number of different ways that you were going to manage your cash flow. Then I heard you say something about it became about wealth and became about the sport of it. Once you hit how many properties did that transition happen? Did it happen at 5 properties, 30 properties? What was it for you that was kind of that ultimate, all right, now I'm financially free, now I'm going to start focusing on the sport?
Probably right when I quit my job. But the interesting thing that happened to me is as soon as I quit my job, I became fearful. I was like, man, now I'm only depending on my properties. What if something goes wrong? So what I did, the wealth creation is kind of sport, right? It's competition. It's me versus that person. It's kind of meaningless. What really became important for me as soon as I became financially free was to deleverage. So this is something else that I teach. We all read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We all learn that, debt can be a very powerful instrument to create your wealth. I know that it certainly was for me, but in my opinion, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should just stay in debt for the rest of your life. Now, there are people who are wealthier than me who would disagree with me on this strongly, like Grant Cardone. But my opinion is you should leverage your portfolio. And then once you get to a position, so you should be very aggressive in the beginning, right? Especially if you're young like I was, you have nothing to lose. So go for it. So I was 21, risked everything, maxed out credit cards, took out personal loans, whatever I needed to do to get there. But once I got there, I didn't want to lose everything that I had worked so hard for the past 6.5 years, right? Building the positive of building my net worth from, X to, let's call it $1 million to 2 million, the positive of that versus the negative of going from $1 million to 0, the risk reward ratio just wasn't there for me. So I became extremely conservative actually when I became financially free. And I ended up paying off mortgages. So today I own over $1 million of my property free and clear without any mortgages. So that was the first step for me, is I became very conservative and I wanted to build a firm foundation. And I think my approach has kind of been the same thing ever since. I partner with a lot of people on deals today, and I don't need to. I have the money. I can invest in these deals by myself. But my strategic reason for partnering is to hedge my risk, right? If I did it by myself, I would get 100% of the cash flow. But also if a roof needs to be replaced and it's 10 grand, I got to come up with 10 grand. If I have a 50% partner, I only have to come up with 5 grand in that example. So I like to own what I own by myself, free and clear. And I like to own with debt with partners. And this is just my way to significantly decrease my risk. Anyone who's been in real estate long enough understands that the person who survives the longest wins. They become the wealthiest, period. Your cash flow doesn't matter even close in comparison to the equity that you're going to build over time. It's not even a competition. So the person who survives the longest wins. So if you know that, paying off your real estate to build that extremely firm foundation makes sense. And then on top of that, I have a line of credit, a HELOC for that free and clear property. And I can just jump on opportunities that perhaps I wouldn't have otherwise been able to jump on. I mean, I have this peace of mind with my portfolio now that regardless of another 2008, regardless of the Fed, regardless of inflation, regardless of anything, I own those properties. No one can take those from me. And just having that firm foundation, I think, is what's allowing me to grow so quickly because I have this peace of mind and I can be a little bit riskier. So as far as my growth strategy, it's really just getting out there and meeting as many people as I possibly can. I mean, this is a team sport. This is a relationship business. So the more people that I can partner with, the more access to capital that I have, the more wholesalers and real estate agents and investors that I could get into contact with, the more deal flow I'm going to have. So I think my growth strategy is now that I've bought my time back, pretty much every single day that I wake up, my time is spent on either real estate or my mentorship business. So that's pretty much what I spend my time on.
Yeah. So I guess the natural question out of that is, how are you finding these partners then? What is your strategy now? What's the approach to making connections and taking those next steps and buying those bigger deals that you're looking at?
Today, it's very much through referrals. Like I said, relationships compound the same way that money compounds. So I remember when I was an engineering student at Rolla and you would go to the career fairs, I was trying to get an internship so bad, and they would tell me, once you get experience, you could get this internship. And I would say, well, I need the internship to get the experience, but I need the experience to get the internship. So what do I do? It's like a chicken or an egg thing. So when you're starting fresh in real estate and you're building those relationships, it's like, well, no one wants to talk to me unless I get experience, but I need experience to talk to people. It's this weird dynamic that you sort of run into. So it is everyone's heard the rocket ship analogy. It's 99% of the work in the beginning, and then it does get easier as you progress. So I would say for me, meeting people now is quite easy. People actually want to talk to me, whereas when I got started, no one wanted to talk to me. I would say if you're starting out, it's putting yourself out there. I mean, we're blessed in 2024 to have social media. We have Facebook groups. We have bigger pockets. We have, even if you're an introvert and you don't want to meet people in person, you can, DM someone on Facebook and then give them a call and build a relationship with them. Now, I'd recommend meeting them in person. You're going to build more genuine relationships that way, but we are so blessed in 2024. I don't think I would have been able to accomplish half of what I've accomplished if I was doing this 40 years ago.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different people we need to meet. Obviously, wholesalers you talked about. You talked about meeting business partners for transactions and deals, title companies, attorneys. You need a network of people, real estate agents when you're getting into real estate and you're growing your real estate business. When you're meeting a contractor, because your expertise now has become in that construction management, the challenge that a lot of people will have is that they will go out to find a contractor and then, like you said, either pay them money up front or make some of these mistakes. When you vet a contractor today, what are you doing to ensure that you've met somebody good that you can use for that relationship?
Yes. Few things. Number one is their temperament when I'm calling them. Some people respond to text messages right away. Other people take, a week before they actually get back to people. I'm the type of person that if I'm hiring you and I call you, I don't expect you to drop everything and, only answer my calls. But, within a few hours, I need some feedback as to, what's going on with my project. So I would say during the interview process, when I'm vetting them, how long is it taking them to get back to me? The people when you send a text and you ask 3 questions and they answer 1 question back and you're like, well, wait, I still have some more questions. things like that as well. So I'm kind of determining the vibe when I'm talking to them. The other thing is I'd like to walk a project with you. I'd like to see, the quality of finishes that you've done for other people. And if there's some hesitation there, it might be a red flag. If they're happy to show you and the quality's good, then that's a green flag. That's really good. And then I'm just very upfront about my expectations and my terms. So everything's done in writing. Today I have an in-house construction company, so I don't have to do this anymore. But back in the day, everything was done in writing. This is when you're getting your first payment. These are the milestone payments that you're going to get. This is the schedule in which you need to complete. Here's the bonus if you complete it on time or exceed expectations. Here's the penalty if you're behind time, and here's your per diem penalty for every single day that this is behind. Doing those things from the beginning and having that conversation up front makes a world of a difference. Because trust me, I've tried blowing up the phone. I've tried screaming. I've tried knocking on the door. I've tried everything. Nothing works as well as having an upfront conversation from the beginning.
I totally agree. In our organization, we take you probably do the same thing. We require all of our contractors to be able to be paid via ACH. They got to have a bank account that the money goes to. We verify insurances, so we want to make sure that they have general liability and workers' comp in place. That way we're not paying their insurances for them on our budgets. And then lastly, we also are going to verify any type of licensing that they have so that we can ensure that they can actually pull the permits and do the work if there's permits required for the work that we're hiring them for. So I'm sure you do the same things today, but contractor management guys, you're going to make mistakes in this business. It's going to be around two things, right, James? Financing and contractors.
That's right. That's right.
So I want to take a second again to thank our next sponsor, if you don't mind, James. Web Insurance. Let Web Insurance be your guide. Guys, they are the thing that people love about Web Insurance, the thing their clients love about them, is that every year they will preemptively shop the best rates to ensure you're at the most affordable coverages with the most appropriate appropriate carriers. So they are 1099 contractor specific. They work well with contractors. They work well with real estate agents, pretty much anybody that doesn't receive their normal income via W-2. Or if you're using the S-Corp strategy and you are taking a W-2, but you have a business, this is the company you want to talk to. Go to www.webinsurance.com to get a quote. Again, that's webinsurance.com. And we are back on with James Gleeson. So, James, we are in the final stretch of our conversation. I appreciate you so much for joining the show and being a part of everything today. We've talked about a number of things. We talked about some mistakes that were made. We talked about your journey early on. We talked about your stretch to financial freedom. We talked about the ability to scale, and we talked about some things to look out for as you're scaling so that you can actually achieve that next level. 28 years old, 108 properties. You're doing it for the sport. What's next for James? What's the next step? What's the future for you look like?
Yeah, I don't have this big goal necessarily. I think I'm enjoying the process, as cliche as that sounds. I would say every property that I buy from this point forward is to make my life better, not worse. I don't really deal with gut rehabs anymore. I don't really deal with like super difficult deals. I don't really mess with those anymore. I'm mostly looking for cosmetic rehabs, maybe a little bit of electric and plumbing and HVAC, but that's really it. So, I have an arbitrary goal to hit 150 units this year. But I think the more important thing to me is just, I want to have a portfolio that doesn't take a lot of my time. I want to get rid of the problems, acquire, really nice properties. Right now I'm looking at an apartment in Clayton. So I'm looking for those nicer assets right now. And yeah.
That's incredible, James. I want to definitely thank you for being a part of our program today. I want to share with everybody here that we have the tour of your 28-unit apartment community coming up with Tours and Pours. You want to tell everybody about what they can expect when we go on this tour, James, and let everybody kind of know how to get in contact with you again?
Yeah, so this is a 28 unit that I own in Soulard, and I'm going to be walking you through a couple of the units, 2 to 3. One that's been renovated, and perhaps another one that's been renovated, and one that we've sort of partially renovated. So we didn't really go the whole nine with it, so that people can sort of get an idea of what it looked like from the beginning. So I'll be giving that tour and just kind of explaining how I did it. Again, you can find me on Instagram, James Gleeson 25. Gleason's with 2 E's, and it's at James Gleeson 25. I post, pretty consistently about real estate topics, various real estate topics, from, finding deals, finding money, construction management, property management, and everything in between. So
That's awesome. Thank you again, James, for being a part of our show. I'm super excited to tour this apartment community with you. Today, we got into your backstory so everybody could get kind of an understanding of who you are. We're going to deep dive in when we go on the 27th and talk about this specific building, the strategy, the acquisition, the financing, and the whole 9 yards. Any questions that you have for James, come out, see us on June 27th. That's Thursday, and the addresses are online. If you need a specific link to register for this, just DM me tour, and I will make sure that we get you the link so you can register for the tour. Thanks, James, for being a part of the show today.
thanks, Nathan. Appreciate it.
All right. So there you have it, guys. We talked a lot today. You learned a whole bunch from James Gleeson, and there's a whole lot more that he has coming up on this tour. I've talked about this with you guys a lot on this show, the importance of construction management, the importance of professionalism in your real estate investing business, the importance of taking things to completion, the importance of underwriting deals properly. At Red Maples, guys, this is what we do. This is how we partner with you in your strategy to ensure that you have good assets under management. We have proper construction management in place. In fact, one of the things that we recently rolled out is our new bid process for owners, so that whenever you are going through turnover, you'll be able to see complete scopes in picture form, very similar to like an inspection or quarterly inspection that we had in place. We put the same process in place just for turnovers on every single unit. We do it every time now. We talked about on the show today the importance of proper underwriting. Well, at Red Maples, we will underwrite all of your current deals in your portfolio the way that you're at right now to see if you would be even a proper profitable candidate for us to take on as management. If you scan the QR code or go to red-maples.com/assessment, we can run an assessment of your portfolio. Remember, my background, guys, just for those that are watching the show for the first time, is I actually have got over 15 years of property management experience, and I hold an MBA with an emphasis in accounting. So when we do the underwriting on these things, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney. I am a licensed real estate agent, and I can give you some assessments and recommendations on your portfolio that will help you better cash flow, better reach financial retirement quicker, like we talked about on today's show. And that, Renovation Nation, brings us to the end of another episode. I'm Nathan Bush, your guide on this real estate journey of business growth. Remember, just like plants need the right air, soil, our minds need the right care and the right environment to build a life of purpose, passion, and growth. Don't forget to get your citizenship to Mind Renovation Nation. Subscribe to the show on YouTube. Go to my website, www.nathanbushmba.com/subscribe, and then share the show. When you share the show, that lets other people know that you care about your real estate business growth journey, and we do it every Friday at noon. And you'll be entered into citizenship in Mind Renovation Nation. What do you get? I've got all kinds of free gifts we give away. I mean, one of the books that I put together was a short little book for you guys. Quit your job and flip homes, right? So you can quit your job and flip homes. It was a show I did with Jamie Frazier just a couple of weeks ago. It's one of the free gifts I give away when you get your citizenship, and that's just one of them. All right, join me next time for more insights, inspiration, and of course, a little bit of that nation-building spirit that drives us to create a community united by shared values, purpose, and a commitment to leaving a lasting legacy. Until then, keep building, keep growing, and let's lead more than 25,000 souls to a life of values-based investing. Yes, in our journey of Mind Renovation Nation, we often talk about personal growth, ethical leadership, and making impactful choices. Well, guess what? Values-based investing is an extension of that philosophy. It's about being a steward not only of our finances, but of our values and vision for the future. So I'm signing off today, guys, from the heart of St. Louis. Stay blessed, stay inspired, and remember, every day is a chance to renovate your nation. Till next time, guys.